So as always, I was on twitter.com arguing with a bunch of random people on the internet just because that is fun to me. And I was discussing with Vector here about, at first, a different topic about, oh, if a character is not designed for this content, you can't really use that as an excuse for the character not being good at that moment. And I think there's a half truth to it. I think multiple things can be true, like, oh, you could say the unit's not good for this content, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily a bad character. It's just that they need a better spot. At the end of the day, though, that does mean that the character is not really that great, and we can't really confirm or like know for sure whether that special placement for them is going to be coming. Now, with all that in mind, we started talking about longer fights, because I think, we kind of talked about, like, I think the discussion going on recently is hits, and Blue Cow and Goku and Golden Week hit on release was very good because there's a lot of long fights that were the harder fights in the game. And then it kind of evolved into talking about how longer fights retreated as a whole during this 10th anniversary year. And it's been 9 months into this 10th anniversary year, and I would say one of the things that I feel like could have been done better are the said long events. I had fun personally with some of these long events, but I'm not gonna sit around and say that they're as engaging as some of my more favorite longer events in the Dokkan kind of history, if that makes sense. And especially, I think there's multiple different reasons for that, but one of the reasons why I think these long events aren't feeling as great as they did in the past is because I think, especially with the Jiren fights, there was an issue of lack of, I guess, engagement, if that makes sense. Like, again, we'll get into it more so, but the first few phases of the more difficult, longer fights we've had this year, in terms of like actually challenging our characters, they were kind of easy very early on, and you kind of just sit through and play the game on the side, which is fair. Like, the game isn't supposed to be super interactive, but there is a point where it's like, well, I'm kind of just doing things on the side while I'm doing it somewhere else, I think, or I'm doing something else. If it's like farming link levels or farming a character up, that's fine. But when you're actually sitting down and playing an event, I would prefer it to be a little more engaging, at least personally. Again, it doesn't have to be something that I need to keep my attention on like every single second, but I want to like think about some of the choices I'm going to be making, right? And I think one event that actually did that well at first was actually this Festival of Battles fight. A lot of people hate this fight, and I think it's very fair because it's very long. And that's, one issue that the biggest issue people have with this fight is that it's very, very long. But I think the idea behind this fight is pretty good because of the charges. It really makes you think about, oh, how am I going to do these rotations? What characters am I going to bring? Things like that. And, even the key sphere field, maybe you want to bring an orb changer to make sure you're consistently getting all the key you need for your characters, right? Which is why in Release Scouter Vegeta was a really good option for this fight. And I think this type of event in concept is very fun, and for me, whenever I do play this event, it's not like I'm playing it every day. Whenever I hop in and do it, I have fun at seeing like this big max numbers that these characters could get. But a lot of people don't enjoy it because it's too long, and I think that's very fair. For a long event, it's not something that you're intended to do a lot. Like when you hop into Dokkan, I don't think this is a fight that people are going to be like, yes, I want to hop into Dokkan just to play Festival Battles every day, right? There has to be a little mix to things. And again, I talked about it a little bit, but the issue with not this one, these two fights here, is that it was a longer fight, but the engagement wasn't there. Unlike this fight, I think there is a level of engagement to the charges, maybe not super early on, but especially when you get into the middle and the end of the fight, more so like the middle of the fight, you really need to think about the charges, or right before the end, before you pop your fusions actives, before you pop all your mega damage active skills, right? This fight I think was very interesting. I feel like these two didn't really have that sauce early on, like, if that makes sense, where at the end of the day, it's just kind of fluff to build your characters up and stack them up, which is, a lot of people wanted fights to actually be able to see the true full potential of our characters, but I think they overcompensated here. Is a lot of people's issues with it, where it's like, you don't really feel like you're playing the game pretty much until the last two phases of these fights, and you get here like what, turn 8. You get here like turn 8. For a lot of people it's like, okay, it's turn 8, I could finally play the game. I think that one issue is that these fights, again, like, I understand their intention, it's just they have to, I feel like the Ribrianne thing could have been interesting. Like, she's debuffable or most stunnable and things like that. Like, there's ways they can make these fights kind of better. And I'm gonna always point to this Red Zone Broly fight here, and we'll talk about it before we hop in. I just brought up a bunch of different, like, I think fights. This Red Zone Broly fight, the thing about this is that he didn't do crazy damage from the get-go, but it's not like he was doing baby damage. He also just disabled dodge right from the start. But this first phase, you know, even though he could hit some units decently hard, this guy does have the ability to be stunned, for example, right? This Broly can be attack or defense lowered, and he's just like off the gate a powerful character. But it's more so you need to think about how you're placing your units or where you're going to place the unit. I think maybe a fight like this where it's like, okay, the first phase could be stunned, the second phase you could be he hits very hard, but you could be attack lord. Then it's like the third and fourth phase, that's where it's like no more debuffs are allowed. Your characters and your rotations are able to set up. Maybe the third phase, even if it has locking, you're able to set things up earlier on, because these earlier phases, while they could be difficult, they also have weaknesses to them. And I think that's the type of mindset that they should go in with these longer fights, because I think that with these longer fights, they feel like they don't want to, I think, give them like the ability to be debuffed and stuff like that. They don't want them to be hitting too hard. But I think because of that, it makes these early phases like a bit too weak. Like, again, we see in this phase, you know, can't be stunned or attack lowered, like that, right? If they made Kale like attack lowerable or stunnable, but then she just does like huge mega damage, like instead of this 1.4 mil, she does like even 4 million right here, like it would hurt certain characters that need to build up, but at the same time you have ways around it, and it makes the event more challenging. And it's like you have to think about what you're going to do, right? I don't know, maybe not exactly like that, like maybe not 4 million here, but like if this was even like 2.5 or something, I think that would be kind of interesting. And that's where it comes to the second point, where like, let's say this Omega fight, for example. This Omega fight's, I think, a well-designed one. The first few phases aren't really too like, you know, like, oh, I have to think about what I'm doing. But like these last 4, I think you kind of really need to start thinking about things, especially with ice locking you and being able to defense debuff you. But I think that by the end here, this Omega, he has dodge disable, he has a defense lower, it's all good. I just think he hits a little too weak overall, and maybe it's because of this defense lower, they're a little scared of it. I mean, 40% defense lower for non-stackers is very devastating, but this is a fight for stacker characters for the most part, right? Like, you have to think about that, because this is an event intended for defense stacking characters for the most part. I would say this defense lower doesn't really do much, so because they were worried about this defense lower, the 7 mil at the end of the day doesn't really hit that hard, right? And I think that's kind of the issue with this fight specifically. I just think that this, like, especially compared to other fights like the Goku Black Zamasu fight or the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta fight, like, they're doing more to our characters more early on, and while those are intended for shorter characters that are strong at the start, our longer characters can handle more than this, is what I'm thinking. So that's kind of my thought process on how these events are going. I did also ask, you know, Twitter, I don't want to take too many talking points because I did peep at 1 or 2 of the replies in my notifications, so I want to like more so kind of, I guess, bring up things as people bring them up, if that makes sense. And people may bring up things that, you know, even if I covered it earlier, I would rather make sure I bring it up when someone's talking about it, in case they also need say a point that I wasn't thinking about when I was thinking that, if that makes sense. But anyways, I don't know if there's any quotes here, Make the Go Frieza states, but actually tanky enough not to just speed through everything. Yeah, I do have the Goku Frieza phase built up here. I think this is another fight that I think was good in its design. Like Gohan and 17, they didn't hit crazy hard, but they hit like a decent number. But it's like you can actually you can't attack lower them. You couldn't seal them either. But you guys kind of see, I guess maybe this one is like a nice little build up here. 17 has a locking and the ceiling. Like they're not babying us early on, I feel like. And this 17, it's not like he did 0 damage, especially with his instant locking. 2 messes up here with the disabled dodge. 17 Golden Frieza did some pretty decent damage. And then Goku Frieza hit pretty hard, scripted Super Arena where it was. Eventually, it's like, okay, our characters were doing so much damage that we kind of melted through a lot of these phases. But the general idea of this fight, I think, was good, especially with it being a 4-phase fight. I think that's a big point. These are 5-phase fights. If these were 4 phases, I think it'd be a lot more palatable for a lot of people. 4-phase fights, I think, are ideal for longer fights. I think it's just like a really good length in terms of the phases. And it just feels better for a fight to be like, you know, 7 to 8 turns rather than I think for a lot of people like 10 to 12 turns. For like at that point, you maybe at this point should just go into festival. Like I feel like this is like, okay, where you see the mega stacking, and then these fights is where you could see a lot of potential for characters, but I don't think that it should be at least at the point where these early phases feel like nothing. Does Mega Boss similar to Gogeta Blue? Wow, okay. Gogeta Blue, let me take a look here, because I think that fight has a lot of the what I was talking about with, like, okay, that fight was one of the first, I think, modern fights, quote unquote, that they're testing attack lowering with. Let me see here, where is the Supreme Battle Spectacle, or Supreme Magnificent Battle is the name for it. There's a GB Super Edition, Super Saiyan God SS Gogeta. I mean, this fight right here, they did decent damage, but from here on out, you could attack lower these phases, and they hit you pretty hard, even though you could attack lower. It's like, okay, you have things around it. And even this phase, again, maybe it is really just like the damage these phases are doing, because those early fights, man, they just, like, in here, I mean, Kale is not doing that much more damage than 17. Like, you know, I guess she of course will, because she has, where is it at? There's too many fights up. This 30% attack up, like, it doesn't matter. But realistically, I think the jump isn't really that high compared to like a year ago or 2 years ago. I mean, this was 1.7-ish. So yeah, that is pretty funny when you really look at it. I mean, Kale hits harder. Like, she hits for closer to 2 mil, but still. Change the unit design from stackers to units that take a long time to build up. So transforming Vegeta into Blue Fusions. Stackers make you want to spend as much time during the easy phases with this boring. So also lower the amount of HP the easy build-up phases have. So 10 turns of stacking, attacking evens with the boss guy kills you, dies in 2 turns anyways. Yeah, it's like, this is just not engaging the first 3 phases. I think when they released it was fun, but for a lot of people, you know, after a certain point, especially without new content, it's like you're playing this event over and over. It kind of gets repetitive, right? And I think, again, yeah, rather than stacking characters, because stacking characters can still benefit. I mean, it's kind of like the same thing though, realistically, but I would say changing the design from stackers to characters that take a long time to build up is also fair. It's not like they don't give characters abilities early on as well, like that are stacker characters. Like, let's take a look here. All the stacker characters we've gotten this year. Vegeta Trunks EZA, for the first 5 turns they get extra defense, for the first 3 turns they get extra damage reduction, right? That is a pretty good ability. Let's see, who else here is like a defensive stack, or even like a really good offensive stacker that I'm trying to find here. Tech Helm Khalifa's another one. For the first 4 turns, they have an extra 20% chance to dodge, and then every time they do 3 more attacks, they also get 20% chance to dodge here. So like turn 3, they have 90% dodge chance, right? They give a lot of them these different abilities for a reason. Let's see. Hit as a character. I don't think Hit gets anything earlier on, being fair, but he does have the ability to like debuff and seal, and he also has stun, does he not? Like, he has a lot of these different effects that could help him out. Like, let's say again, a boss hits really hard, but then you have Hit, who's a stacker character that benefits in those long fights. Oh, I could attack lower, or I could stun this character, or I could seal this character, right? Like, that's where you could work things around and make the boss actually challenging, make you think of, hey, if I bring this character that I maybe wouldn't usually bring here, I could get a benefit from that. Just make the bosses hit harder to compensate, right? I don't know. These two have the damage reduction 77% for the first turn. I mean, again, Super Saiyan Goku right here has the extra damage reduction early on. Like, you guys kind of see, like, with these like really good stacking characters that released this year, they have abilities early on. So why are the fights designed as if they don't? Should be challenging turn one. Yep, spending 20 minutes with just punching bags isn't fun and good for testing units. Also, the last phase should be really challenging because you could easily counter long events. Yeah, again, at this point we have so many Ghost Usher characters. Just stacking defense like completely negates defense lowering. Like, they have to make these longer fights a little more toxic even, and people wouldn't like necessarily that word choice, but I mean, imagine we have the Pure Saiyans red zone right now. I think what they should do is they should make it a callback to the original Broly, and that could be very well the case. What it's going to be like, this might be just a callback to the original Red Zone Broly. Maybe not dodge a stable AoE phase, double super at the end, 220 mil supers with dodge save. We're gonna be like, oh, that's so difficult. Okay, you have Tech Super Vegito. You could even use him as a friend. You probably could demolish if this guy's AGL. You have many characters like, you know, even like if he's AGL, like that's Tech Count Caulifla, whose defense stacking gets absurdly high. You have Ghost Usher characters like Hit. You can even use properly Pycon. Like, eventually, if the LR Androids get an EZA and he does like a Key Blast Super, they could be an option, even if they're not a stacker. But ideally, like, you run just like stackers here, and the point is, like, let's say he does 20 mil in like turn 9. Is it really something that like our really good characters can't handle? Maybe like some of the more medium-ish characters can't, but then a lot of these like really strong stackers, sometimes they have team protection abilities anyways, like we talked about Tech Super Vegito. Super Gogeta provides a mass defensive buff. We know that trying to think of another character, like there's target skills that are available now. Like, I mean, even if he does a 20 mil super, the Gogeta Frieza character is gonna be fine, right? Like, you switch over to Gogeta at the end and he provides a ton of defensive support. He can't sit in slot 1, but he could provide a huge defensive buff to the character even in slot 3, for example. Or, you know, in general, stackers are just getting so powerful that there's no challenge. Maybe it could even be like 15 or 17 mil, like just like double super guaranteed dodge. I'm not sure what the exact number it should be, but it shouldn't be a thing where, oh, with the stacker I'm guaranteed to take double digits. You should still take some damage, honestly, unless it's like, you know, something like Tech Super Vegito's active skill turn. I think then it's like, at that point, if Tech Super Vegito on the active skill turn in a stacking event can't tank, then you're kind of cooked, right? But you guys kind of see where I'm coming from, where it maybe even like the boss seals, like, could potentially seal. Like, what if the boss has like a 50% chance to seal? Okay, I use Tech Super Vegito's active skill, and then although I'm still countering, the boss is still going to seal, or maybe the boss has a critical hit where it's like, okay, I still will take a little bit of damage with Super Vegito even using his active skill turn, something like that. I don't know. Maybe the more attacks received within the turn, the build up attack, and like that counters Super Vegito if that's the case. I'm just trying to think of things, but there are ways. They're playing it kind of safe, right? There are ways that they can make these fights more interesting as well, even without just like crazy mechanics. I would kind of like it. I think at this point for long fights, we need to call back to this fight. Again, maybe not necessarily this, but this last phase, double super, it's like unpredictable. You don't know where it's going to be. You don't know if you're going to die. You have to play things around and kind of think about what you're doing. Adding a skip to super attack animations. that's also another easy option, I guess, where it's like, okay, what if I get to skip my turns? It's like, I select my orbs, I could just skip the entire turn. I don't know if that like would really matter, honestly. It's like, okay, let's say you could skip your turn, and you know, if they really care about leaderboards, just make the time not count for the leaderboards, or like a separate leaderboard or something. Like, okay, and then it's like, okay, if you don't skip, you'll be on the leaderboard. If you do skip, you won't be. Like, I kind of feel like it's not like the time leaderboard really makes a difference at all, pretty much. And at this point, I think it's kind of like silly, but at the same time, it's like there's no point to not having the option. I think the game kind of, the whole point of the game is kind of use the characters and see their animations realistically. But I think especially for these longer fights, if you could skip through them, a lot of people would feel better. A lot of people would feel better even about Festival, or a lot of people would feel better about like the Jiren fights when they came out, if you could just skip the early phases and get to the actual challenging parts, right? I think personally they should just make the fights overall more engaging. Traditionally, long fights can be cheesed with ease at this point, so they should probably aim for a medium length fight that is free at the start. I think that's also fair, instead of like a mega long fight. Again, something like 4 phases. That way units like Tech Super Vegeta here would still struggle, but also units that wear off would have a hard time keeping up. Exactly. More like 7 to 8 phase turns, rather than something like 10 to 12. Have Goku flash a scream in his big fat booty. That'd be so awesome, man. That would be so great. Those Goku and Vegeta's fights that they did with a ton of health were fine. I think these are cool as well. Yeah. Core game issue. It's not that events are too long outside of Festival, but the animations, multiple supers, and normal animations altogether make for such slug gameplay. We need to revamp additional supers and world tags and stuff like that. I mean, that could also be fixed probably with the skip animation, honestly. Yeah. The first couple of phases for long events, yeah, again, kind of the same point here from Gino. I know Gino does a lot of challenge runs, so this guy, like, he knows what he's talking about when it comes to these events, because him and Chaotic, dude, they like put themselves through like torture sometimes. Yeah, our previous difficult long events weren't like that. They could all catch you early on. GG Legendary Goku event, Red Zone Broly, Blue Zone Gogeta, Goku Frieza. Exactly. Animation speed increases with every time you see the same super. I mean, maybe just a skip, honestly, at this point. Why not? Boss rushes, red zone fights. It's long but not dragging. Yeah, because these are all like the final phases, right? More fights on the lines of Red Zone Zero and Shadow Dragon Boss Rush, where more fights end by turn 11. Max 20. I feel like it should be the opposite, honestly. It should be the opposite. Because if you want a really long stacking fight, got Festival. In my opinion. You want the second stage of Festival with like double the charge counts per stage. Checkpoints that have the last 20 stages that have gimmicks. So just Festival 2.0, okay. Well, I think that there's a lot of different points and interesting points that can be had. I would say a second stage of Festival, I wouldn't mind it. I think a lot of people, like, if we're talking about the community and what they want, a lot of people would care. They wouldn't want another, I guess, just like stacking simulator in that mark, right? Where it's like, okay, just kind of at the end of the day, the same fight. I think we need something to shake things up. And even if it's, I mean, obviously, if it's called back to this, we don't want it to be the same exact fight, but like a similar design to like this fight or this fight. Like I said, 4 phases is perfect. And we still have what? At least from what we know, we're going to get a Kale fight. Maybe, yeah, a Kale fight, Caulifla fight, a Kaba fight, a Broly fight. Like there's still at least 4 stages coming here. So, okay. I wonder if we'll get a Majin Vegeta fight here. We could get a Majin Vegeta fight potentially. Like, even though he's not on the image, maybe that could be something they do. But that's, again, that's the issue with here. I think these 3 at the end of the day just didn't really engage us enough. I think even this fight is like early on, it didn't engage us enough and it could have hit harder because at least the Jiren fights, I think for their time, did crazy damage, honestly. Festival, for a lot of people, it's too long. We have, I think this is a fight where I think I liked the design of this fight. I just think maybe Zamasu and his AoEs could have hit harder. Like, what if there were just 2 mil AoEs? And then this super hit for like, maybe he had an attack race here. The super hit for like 5.5 mil, or yeah, 5.6 mil or something like that, right? Would it be? Yeah, like he had that, and then, well, maybe don't make the AoEs like 2 mil if he has a 50% attack raise, but you guys get the point. And then this fight right here with the mega defense lower, maybe he should have gotten this a little quicker after receiving an attack. Should have been a little higher. I mean, he doesn't super you. No, he does super you basically slot 1 pretty much every time. And then this first phase maybe could have just had a little more health and been a little more difficult. And I think like this fight could have been really interesting. Like this fight got really close, I think. But it's also like a thing where people will focus on just the final fights of the red zones. So this fight was cool. I just think that it was very boring. Like there's no special gimmicks to it pretty much. It's just like, oh, they raised their attack. There's nothing that really makes you think a lot outside of like the 3 Giru supers. That's like the most interesting thing of this fight to me. Like this fight was a bit scripted in the last super. It's like, but scripted in a way where you could kind of easily get around things, right? I don't know. I didn't really like it too much. I think that this could have been done a little better. But yeah. Anyways, let me know what y'all thinking in the YouTube comments. I appreciate y'all for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.